people, they have a different mindset and they have a different way of doing business. They just spread a sheet on a footpath, on a road, on a bridge, and start selling things there. They don't give
Yeah.
money, any tax, any electricity charges, nothing. And they are selling. Of course, they are going to sell cheap because they don't have a shop. They don't have.
Yeah.
They don't need to pay any tax or any electricity or any charges, and they are taking all the business away. But of course, people are. That's why I shared my story that Pakistanis are still enjoying their freedom even after 77 years or whatever, because they wherever they see the fruit seller or a grocer or anyone, they just stop there right in the middle of the road and start doing the shopping and bargaining and all sort of things. 99% are Afghanis. They are selling things on road, on bridge.
Hmm.
Pakistan, I think, would be the only country in the world where we have traffic jam on bridge.
Huh.
On bridge.
Huh. Interesting.
Because people are selling fruits there or selling old
Yeah.
items.
Yeah.
Okay, now please.
We have to go live. Yeah.
Oh, you were saying I'm going to say something about it.
Yeah. No, no, very good. All right, let's go live. Where is this now? What happened here now? Where's my tab? Or I had it. I don't know what happened to it now. Oh dear. I set it up. I thought it was on the page that I normally do it, but then I looked there, it's not there. So I don't know what happened. Well, we must be live. Are we live, Beena?
I have no idea. Let me check. Yes.
I didn't click to
Yes.
go live. All right, sorry, we're a little slow. I didn't click on the button to go live. It just clicked itself.
Okay, no
Uh,
problem. Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Syl. Good morning. Hoping
no.
you will join us soon. It was a bit abrupt here. We were busy sharing things and discussing a lot of other things. And suddenly it was time. So, yes, we were not paying attention fully.
No,
Yes.
no, no.
But it's all good. We are here. So
Oh
while
yeah.
Syl is sharing things, okay, and making setup of all those things, today's thought. Today I was invited. I'm a privileged one. I must say thank you to Syl, and of course I must say thanks to the universe, because really I feel that I am a privileged one. Okay, yes, it's a very well earned privilege I have, because I was doing a lot of effort for that.
Oh yeah.
To be part of Way of Impeccability, every other thing is just a bonus. But just to be
No,
part
no,
of being of Way of Impeccability is a big privilege for me.
no.
And I just want to share my gratitude, my appreciation for that. I have been like, okay, now Syl corrected me that, okay, it's been 5 years we are doing these things together. Of course, Syl already before me joining that, it was
Right,
already,
June. It was in June 2019 that we connected, I believe. Yeah.
yes. Wow, okay. Wow.
Right.
Wonderful.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not sure. But yes, if you
I am.
I trust your memory. So it was already done. I was not part of it, the initial thing. Of course, this is entirely purely his own thing. When I'm saying, okay, I'm part of it, I'm just saying that, okay, when it was actually being getting out, when he already written all those things, and when he was looking for post beta tester, even it was tested already. But I became part of it because it's a living thing. As Syl always said, it's ever growing, it's ever updating, it's
Yeah.
always in the process of improvisation. Improvisation, not in the concepts, because concept I personally feel that they're very clear and well thought
Right.
and
Right.
well practiced, but the improvisation in communication. So
The
this is
sharing of
something
it. Yeah.
yes, yes. So I am part of that process, just to make it very clear, because I don't want to get any false idea that okay, I was part of it. I was not part of making it. No, in the first time. No, I
Yeah.
just joined as a post beta tester, and then the full door of Moreness was open for me, and I grabbed this opportunity again. I was sharing in the podcast also, Syl, that I shamelessly accept that I am an opportunist. Why
Yes,
I'm
have to
using
be.
this word, we have some negative
Yeah.
association with the being opportunist.
When it
But
comes
this is
to
what the magic,
profound opportunity, you
I'm
have to
saying that
be.
this is the
Yes.
magic of way of impeccability, that we do make new appropriate association with already existing conceptions.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
opportunity is, it's not out of greed. The
Yeah.
opportunity is to see the value. If I see the value which is coming, and I can have that free of cost, why?
Yeah.
Why I would
Yeah.
just ignore this or not take it?
Exactly. Exactly.
I
Exactly.
was showing that when universe provide you something, when universe just bless you with something so profound, so huge, and you know
Yeah.
that it can be life transformative for you, it can actually give you a lot of unresolved questions in your mind. It can
Yeah.
provide
Yeah.
you some resolution for that. Why? Why
Exactly.
anyone would not grab it? This is
Exactly.
what being opportunist for me. I
Exactly.
did get, okay, yes, people have a different understanding of being opportunist. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Ambitious.
Yeah.
Yes, I was super ambitious. But because I've been through some setbacks in my life, in my career, and in my ambition side. So my ambitious side was not as at peak as it would be before. And I was learning that
Yeah.
okay, things never, sometimes things doesn't go the way you planned. Universe always have its own agenda, its own program, its own intent. And this is what was happening with me, and that was bringing me more patience. Of course,
Yeah.
the I'm super reluctant. I was super reluctant. Now I am a bit like, okay, yes, it's okay, uh, to have that patience, because I was like, okay, for me, having patience is like you have to just wait for things to happen. And my ambitious side was like, okay, no, when you
You
can
have
do,
to wait
why?
anyway. You have to wait anyway.
Yes, but I was like, when you can do things, so why to wait
Yeah.
for? For me, patience was connected, or hardly connected, hardwired, associated with just waiting and doing nothing. So that's why I was super reluctant to accept. But this is what had happened. This is
Yeah.
what you understand when you start acquiring peace of being. And this
Yeah.
is what happened with me. That okay, yes, I know that I have done my part. I've been trying to be impeccable, and I did as much as I could. And now I need to just let it go and let the universe do its own part and let the bigger
Exactly.
intent play.
Exactly. Exactly.
This is what
Brilliant.
patience is.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And also, I want to just talk about opportunity in a moment. I just want to say hello to Inezi, or has joined us on IG. Hello,
Hello.
Inezi. Wonderful to have you here. I don't remember seeing you before. So very cool. Very cool. Now, when it comes to opportunity, yes, and
Yes.
somebody offers you an opportunity, yeah, like I did to Beena initially. Right? Beena came as a participant, and I said, well, you can just come every day if you want to, because we really we're doing the Moreness and connecting and being fully immersed in the Moreness, and Beena shares my passion for Moreness. Huh? It's almost a need, really. And so
Yes.
she grabbed, that's the opportunity she's talking about, coming every day. And she did, and she's been coming every day ever since then. Now, some people say, well, like some of maybe I think friends or family said, well, you're kind of taking advantage of Syl. But Syl offered this. And giving due respect to the offer means that you take up the offer in the way it is offered.
Exactly.
Just because it's beneficial for you, don't assume it's not beneficial for the one offering. It's been massively, massively, massively beneficial to me. Yeah. So when you take up the offer, you are giving respect that the offer was made with sobriety, made with sensibility, made genuinely. If the person didn't want you to take up the offer, they wouldn't make up the offer. Now, maybe it's possible that somebody's just being kind of friendly and nice and kind, and well, that's their problem then, really. And then, okay, you can adjust later. It happens. But nonetheless, if somebody makes an offer and it's obviously a serious offer, then if you take it up, you are honoring and respecting them and their desire to make that offer, understanding that they are making it because they want to. There's value in it for them. Yeah? As in this case, just because there's massive value for you doesn't mean there's not massive value for me. We tend, that's kind of mentality of opposites, right? To assume, oh my God, this is so wonderful. Then it's like, well, there must be some price on the other side. Nonsense. It can be wonderful and wonderful. Yes? Right, Beena? Can be wonderful and wonderful, both together. Yeah. And this is very powerful. Oh, I think I'm frozen. Yeah. Go ahead, Beena.
Sorry, I was just sharing something on YouTube.
Ah, no
It's not
problem. No
something
problem.
actually here. I was just
Yeah.
sharing the live and all these things. Yes. So, okay. So your picture is frozen, not frozen, sir. You can continue, please.
Oh, okay,
We can
okay.
hear
Well,
you.
that's it. That's I just wanted to say. This is so important to understand that when people make an offer, that they are doing so because they want to, and you have to trust that. No matter how wonderful that offer is for you, don't assume it's not wonderful for them. Some price for them, some onus to them. No, it's beneficial to them. Like in this case, yeah, I've got much value out of this. Incredible, incredible, incredible value, and still do every day.
Just
It's wonderful.
okay. Just
So
want
say
to
hello
add
to
something.
Norma before we continue. Hello, Norma.
Norma.
Hello,
Hello,
Norma.
Norma.
I love that you're here, Norma. I love that you're here. Wonderful, wonderful. Cool, very
Yes.
cool, Norma.
Yes.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I just want to add something here because in this case, especially as you said, okay, you can come, and I was coming. I was coming because I was really amazed by, like, really, if people say that, okay, stuck, that was really
It was
happened to
life
me.
changing. That was the issue. It was
Not
life
with
changing.
Syl, of course. Yes. It was not because of Syl, of course, because it was that, okay, what he was sharing at the time was like really absolutely making
Mind
sense
blowing.
to me, but also very new to me. Nobody was actually explaining things like him, and I was like, this is what I want in my life. This is what I
Yeah,
want in my life.
yeah.
I never thought until people just made me aware of it that, okay, yes, it's an opportunity and you are taking advantage. You might be taking advantage of it. I never thought of it because first time I
Oh,
can say with absolute surety that first time in my life I met someone who think like me. What he was saying, what he's
yes,
saying,
yeah.
and what he is actually doing,
Resonance.
and what he's thinking is same. So he was not just extending this offer that, okay, oh yeah, just to look nice and good, but he really mean it. That's why he did, and he
No,
was taking full responsibility of it. So for me, when he said that, I immediately took that clarity of intent and the purity of intent at the time, and I said, okay, yes, why not? So
no,
for me, that is something very, very precious, very valuable in our relation. That, okay, yes, Syl is someone who who's not only say things, he also think the same, he also do the same. At least in my experience, almost always.
no,
I always take a precaution of saying being
no.
absolute. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay.
Love you, Norma.
So
Love you,
sir,
Norma.
if
I'm
I
glad that you're happy to be here. Glad that you're happy to be here. Yeah, yeah.
yes. Okay. You are sharing screen, sir.
Yes, I'm about to. I just wanted to type
Okay.
that to Norma there, and I got to put off the sound here and check this, and then go back here. I can see Norma's comments, and we shall do screen share. Yes, you know, right here, and we'll continue our chapter 9 now of reading Carlos Castaneda's books, doing a capital or reading of it. And our intent is to read Don Juan, to get to know Don Juan. And not only Don Juan's philosophy and cosmology. It's about the best word for it, right? I use this term cosmology as a term for, I mean, universology would be another word, but that's kind of clumsy to say. Cosmology as Don Juan's understanding of not only how the world works, but the greater universe, because that does come into it later on, right? And that's why I call it his cosmology, rather, and his philosophy, his way of doing things. Everything about him is part of this greater system. Yeah. And we are going to, it's a lot of complexity and involvement, and it's got lots of parts to it. Some parts are legacy parts which aren't no longer viable, or not viable, they're no longer in use really by Don Juan, because they've lost relevance, right? As his lineage, which is what he is sharing, comes from the extended lineage that goes back centuries, right? And it's developed and grows, and it's not a static thing, which any system that involves learning and growing and awareness cannot be static, right? It has to be living, it has to be alive, it has to grow. So we are reading to know Don Juan. And the person, him individually, we're going to do the same with Don Gennaro. I know it's Don Genaro or something, Don Genaro maybe, but I call him Don Gennaro because that's just my nickname for him, right? So don't get hung up on the mispronunciation, right? I mean, if he was here, I'd be calling him Gennaro. I wouldn't actually call him Don Gennaro. Yeah. He's a different character to Don Juan. And we'll get to know other members of his party as well. We don't get as much to work with, like Silvio Manuel is very mysterious character, even to Carlos also. But we'll get little tips here and there. But Don Gennaro, we get a lot from him, right? And he's very cool. He's very different. Is extensively in the books at some point. And we want to know them. We want to know them because what somebody says and what somebody does isn't always the same. In this case, they do match up. But when you get to know the characters through our skills of capital H hearing, yes, capital R reading, we are able, through the use of implication and understanding and all of the other tools that we have at our disposal. This is a skill that we do possess, right? And I have a big program that teaches the skill, that shares the skill. And through this, we are going to get to know Don Juan, Don Gennaro, and others. And this makes a big difference because, like I say, when somebody shares something and they also live it, and you get to see this in the understanding of them, even if it comes where Carlos isn't directly making an effort to do this, we are going to use our skills of extraction to get this moreness. And it adds a greater understanding, a greater cohesion, a greater depth to what we are doing. It's very, very powerful. Yes, Beena? Anything to add? Oh, you muted.
Yes. No, nothing to add, but I was like listening to this.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, we're doing a lot here. We're bringing our own moreness to the extraction of moreness from this book, because this, the book series, we are on book 1 of 14 books, right? Now, likely there's one book that we won't do because it's about physical exercises. We'll read the introduction, yes, because every book has an introduction where Carlos essentially repeats the same, the start, how he got connected to Don Juan. And every time it's slightly different. But not that he's changing his story, it's just how memory works. And he doesn't want to just repeat exactly the same information. He's saying the same thing in different words. So you glean a little more, which is wonderful, right? We get that benefit, right? And we get to know more in this. Very important. Just reminded me of something that I wish to practice today. I noticed that I'm saying something and I don't want to, and I want to not say it. So very important. So our discernment here of the moreness that's in this book series, and there is tons of it, right? I just want to make this very clear. Sorry to Karen, they've been hang on to your point. The moreness is profound. I've read all the classics that I could get my hands on at the time, right? What was considered. And I read enough of what are classics to be able to get an understanding of the entirety. Why? Because they overlap. You might not read every book, but it doesn't matter. You don't have to read every single one to get an idea of the overallness of it. Yeah. So I read Eastern and with a whole lot, right? The whole world, not just in one part of the world. And in this, what Don Juan has is a fantastic moreness. It's a completeness to a large degree that isn't really found everywhere else as that I've been able to find, except in Buddhism. But in Buddhism, it's so vast and spread out and diverse. It doesn't have the cohesion that Don Juan has. Now, his system has cohesion, but also it has parts to it that aren't really usable without being in his lineage. This is where I come into it. I've put together a system that can be used by anyone. You don't have to be part of a lineage. Of course, if you do it as part of a group and a collaboration, it adds inordinately to the value that you have. But you can do it on your own. To me, this is absolutely important. Absolutely important. There has to be a path that enables you to do things on your own. Because I have been in a circumstance where I was not in a situation where I could share and connect and collaborate with anybody. And that could still exist in the world. Yes, all right. With the internet today, that's less likely because via the internet, you can connect to anybody. Right? When I came up, there was no internet, and this made a massive difference. So this access, because I see people even in remote villages where, there's not much going on, they have connection to the internet, via satellite, whatever, solar power for the phone. This is a massive difference. Nonetheless, yes, you may have restrictions on your internet, whatever. I still feel it's important that you're able to do this on your own. Yeah, this to me is absolutely essential. Without the need for a special individual, special powers, special whatever, right? I feel this is very, very important because even though you may have connection to the internet, you may still not have access to those special things. And to me, I cannot see a universe designed in such a way that you have to have this. Now, your path may take you there via attunement, yes, but not as a starting point. No, 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 right? I don't believe this. And Don Juan does say this as well at some point, right? We'll get there. We'll get there. So it's much moreness here. Please, your point, Beena. I know I went on a long way. Sorry.
No. First thing I was just saying that, okay, please do share the customized screen because now we are seeing the whole thing.
Oh,
So,
I forgot to do that. Yes, yeah. I mean,
yes.
I thought I did it, but I didn't. Yeah. No,
Yes.
I like it. That's a nice feature on the customized screen. Yeah, it's very, very helpful. Very, very helpful. And it matters for IG because of the vertical format for IG. Now they see that only, and they don't. It's not squished into the middle, and they can read along with us. So that's very cool.
Yes.
So please read Beena. I'll check on IG, and I like to check on IG because not everybody comments. So then I don't see it on Restream, which shows me if people comment. Like Norma, I can see it there. Or if like Christopher Abbott, when he comments on YouTube, I see it in one place, and I see the IG comments in one place also. It's very helpful. Actually, I don't. This doesn't show me the IG comments. It's not showing me your comments, so I have to go look on IG there. So I don't know why it's not showing the IG comments. Anyway.
Okay. Chapter 9.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Chapter 9. Don Juan seemed to want me to work with the devil's weed as much as possible. This stand was incongruous with his alleged dislike of the power. He explained himself by saying that the time when I had to smoke again was near, and by then I ought to have developed a better knowledge of the power of the devil's weed.
Don Juan's impeccability. Right? Again, this is what I was talking about earlier. How we can extract moreness. So Don Juan is doing something which is puzzling to Carlos. Don Juan says, I don't like the devil's weed at all, but yet he's encouraging Carlos to do it. And in Carlos's world, this doesn't make sense because Carlos is quite an adherent, inadvertently, yes, of the superiority paradigm. And in the superiority paradigm, I push on to others what I like. That's typically how it works, right? People share, want you to do what they like. There's no understanding in the superiority paradigm of rightness, appropriateness. What is appropriate for Don Juan is not necessarily appropriate for Carlos. And Don Juan is fully aware of this. So his integrity says, I have to share all the options, even though it's not an option I choose, this might be the option for Carlos. I don't know. I have to give it my all, give it my best, right? And present the entirety of it to him, even though I personally don't like it. He needs to choose, not me choose for him. Not me choose for him. Don Juan cannot do this. He cannot choose for Carlos. He cannot. This is against his integrity. How can you choose for somebody else, especially in something that's so profound? This has to go according to you, your inner predilections, right? Very important. Make sense, Beena?
Yes. Yes.
Right,
I still feel a bit sympathy for Carlos, because as you said that okay, he's from the superiority paradigm and he's a knucklehead and all. And I was like, maybe when things are completely new, out of your understanding, out of your awareness, you do look like a bit fool there, because you don't know. You try to figure out things. Of course, act according to the memory of our experiences. This is the conventional way of doing things and learning. So in this case, I feel a bit compassion.
Yes, a little bit, but it's important to understand, right? Yes, I give Carlos a hard time. Carlos is the fool, right? In this whole series, and he continues to be the fool almost all the way to the end, right? But now in other literature, the fool is a like in King Lear, you have the fool, right? The courtly jester, but and that's like a specific role. It's double role here. But the fool in literature is a character that is there by way of contrast to present you with the extremes. And also the fools will say things that are profound or do things that are profound, even though it's foolish. Yeah, even though it's foolish, it's still profound. Carlos is an instrument of attunement in this entire book series. And when we understand that, Carlos's knuckleheadedness, his lack of awareness, his superiority paradigm attachments, his bubbleness is what makes this a series. If Carlos had been sensible, it would have been one book. Carlos did stuff, bing, bang, boom, he gets to the end and off he goes, right? And that's it. And he comes to this end and moves on to an alternate reality, and it just gets to enlightenment or whatever the end is, right? Freedom in this case. And that's it. Okay, Carlos did, and he learned, and it would be very short and very quick, and we wouldn't have all of this detail that we get. And because Carlos is very slow, according to Don Juan, he says it to Carlos's face. He says, well, we had to do this stuff to you because you were exceedingly slow in learning. You were stuck, right? So we get to hear all the details, and Don Juan trying every single different aspect, because you don't always need all of the aspects, right? Like I said, with some of the other apprentices, they just got it right away and off they went, right? And so we don't know all the things. We'd know one technique, okay, the technique worked, and off you go. See, so Carlos is a product of attunement. And him being who he was, made for this exceptional book series, giving us a view of a process of an apprenticeship into moreness, into freedom, that comes from a very particular place which we would not have otherwise seen, right? And it's very, very, very powerful. And it is one of the reasons I like to document what Beena and I are doing. And I've shared others with other participants also. But it's a record. If you want to go back and you look, you can see the growth, you can see the learning, you can see all the different aspects, because we're talking about it in all different ways, right? So there's a massive, massive value involved. Carlos is a knucklehead by design, not his own design, but the design of the universe. When you understand this and you look at this book via attunement, the book itself, the book series, is a product of attunement. And this is a product of the awareness of the universe, you could call it, of intent itself, as we'll later see how it works out. Don Juan will explain, and I'll explain also more about intent, capital I intent, the underlying intent of everything. And that intent is towards the enhancement and development of awareness. When you understand this, you see how things like this come about. And there's a necessity for it. And the timing is right. In times before this, the 60s, when this book came published, it was the first time in history that such a book actually would have been able to really see the light of day. There have been other books that talk about wild things, and at least according to conventional paradigms, really extraordinary, exceptional things. But they get banned, they get hidden, and they're sitting in the Vatican's vault, for instance, many of them, right? And you don't get to see these books. Yeah. So this book talks about stuff that otherwise would not have been possible to be shared. At the time, it was quite radical, but because of the particular angle that Carlos comes at it via anthropology, it made it acceptable. And this is very, very important. So this book got into the public view. Now, there may be other books about the stuff, and I know of books, but they're not generally accessible to the public. They're not in the public mindset. And you have to know specific things to know about these books. And it's not available, easily available to everybody. With this is you start doing internet searches, like for integrity, impeccability, you're going to come to this, right? You see what I mean? And because it's big. It's not just a rare, exceptional book, which you might never find otherwise, or be very difficult to find. And so it brought many conceptions into the public via this absolute unique peculiarity of Carlos and his circumstance, his situation. Attunement. And like I said, all of history before then, many things tried and started to come to a Moreness, but they didn't quite succeed. Or they did succeed, but then they became bogged down in tradition. Right? Look at Buddhism. I love Buddhism, the Buddhism that Buddha taught, which is not a religion. And I'm not being controversial here. This is just fact. A religion is defined by worship. It's one of the key components of a religion. Buddha never, right? Siddhartha Gautama, right? We call the Buddha, but is actually a Buddha, one of many. He is teaching you how to also become a Buddha. It is a philosophy. It's not a religion. He's not saying worship me. Never, ever, ever, not once. This is just completely against everything that he was teaching, right? This idea of worshiping him. Yet religions develop from that. I mean, there's not just one form of Buddhism. There's the greater wheel, Hinayana or Mahayana and Theravada, all sorts of different kinds of Buddhism, right? Tibetan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, and a whole variety of them, right? And they can be very different to each other. They have common core principles, as Christmas Humphreys put together, right? He's a fantastic Buddhist scholar, and he made this list of common principles. He said, you guys are so diverse on the surface, but yet there are common things that you stand for, that you agree to, and he made those common principles of Buddhism. And it's really fantastic to read that. My point is that those have become bogged down because there's no built-in evolution and growth to those religions. They stuck, right? What has become traditionalized, that's it. That's the end of it now. And you're just repeating and you're just looping in a circle. There's no growth. There's no growth, right? And the religions come about for all sorts of different reasons, mostly control and power and influence, etc. And then the underlying philosophy dies. Like in those religions where people are doing prayers and chants and all of this stuff. The point that the Buddha, as we call him, Siddhartha Gautama now, what he was trying to get to teach you also to become a Buddha. This has died somewhat, right? And it's dead. It's just looping in a circle. You've got one idea of how to do it, or some ideas of how to do it, and it's fixed. It's locked in. No, this cannot be. So what Carlos and Don Juan present in the world of learning is a system that's a living system that's continually being updated. And this is absolutely crucial. Now, it's somewhat missed And the key is because of the power plants. Look, in the 60s, drugs was the thing, right? Keep in mind, by the way, we've grown up where drugs are illegal, most people. But in the 60s, they weren't. Well, not all of them, at least, right? They became illegal as a result of the 60s. It's very important to understand. Yeah. So the focus on drugs was a big deal. In the sense that, well, at that time there wasn't stuff like crystal meth, even cocaine wasn't. It was around, yes, but it wasn't the drug. LSD was the main drug, right? That was it. It was an hallucinogen, and this is what made it so deal. So really keep in mind, it was only really one drug that was this focus. It was LSD, or okay, maybe marijuana, but the focus when it came to drugs and the culture of spiritual use of drugs was LSD. That was it, really, right? And this was popularized by a guy called Timothy Leary, a Harvard professor, right? And he did studies on it, and he said, go and take it to the students, and it was very outrageous, and it caused a big hullabaloo, and of course, it eventually led to it being illegal. But I want to understand that in the 60s, LSD as a hallucinogen, right? This was for spiritual purpose and reason, not for entertainment. It was a spiritual deal, very profoundly. So Carlos comes along, and because what he's talking about also is spiritual or moreness or depth, right? Enhancing yourself as a person, learning, growing. This, because of the popularity of drugs in that context, made his work very popular and put him on the map. And so then when he came with books 2 and 3, which goes on to the philosophy, really, about mainly the books 2 and 3 about the warrior's way. Yeah, there's some stuff about the drugs, but that's now we're starting to see the real value. But the drugs is like the hook, the lure that pull people in, that made his works popular. You see, I'm trying to make a point here, in a bigger point about attunement, how this all worked and how things developed and came. Yeah, it's quite magical. It's very, very, very magical. All right, Beena, let's continue. Unless you have some comment on what I'm saying there. I mean, it's an important point that I'm making to understand the greater context of this book series. Yes?
Yes. No, this is actually very much needed to understand this, because it just takes like few years and anything can turn into a religion. And then, of course, the all superiority paradigm nonsense can come into that, because it's about control and manipulation. So yes, this is important to see things in real context also. And what you were saying about Buddhism, yes, I absolutely agree. Why I was saying that, okay, I feel that, okay, you are giving a really hard time to Carlos, because I was thinking about him, that how the new, all the concepts and way of doing things for him at that time, what Don Juan was doing was completely alien to him. And we have been trained and also designed by a lot of shirts. Like you have to say things, and you have to, we don't allow the moreness to come in. So that's why the practical approach towards things like, okay, yes, if I want this, I'm just going to get this. This is the way to get these things. We don't allow the moreness. We don't allow the attunement to come in. And of course, having patience for that. I've been there. I'm guilty of it. I still have some like impatience in me. And I was like, okay, but I also feel that people, as you mentioned, that having someone who can ask questions. Actually, nothing in the world is a stupid question. I don't think so that it exists. Because
exactly, there's no such thing. Exactly.
Every question gives you something. If not about that subject, this question has been asked about, at least about that person who is asking. Or their expectation or their mindset, something about every question carries something, some value in it. So there is no such thing as a stupid question. Maybe they are not asking in an appropriate way. Yes, this could be the reason, but nothing. So what Carlos is doing, he is asking. Actually, he's being overly thorough in this case. I feel that sometimes
he's asking the stupid questions on our behalf. Yes.
So yes, so I'm with you,
so,
Carlos.
Beena, part of me giving Carlos a hard time it's because I'm giving myself a hard time.
Okay.
That knuckleheadedness, that unawareness, that foolishness, I recognize it as it's there in me also, or at least was. Yes. And I know this. I know that what Carlos is, I understand it from the inside, because at some point I did exactly the same thing. Yes. Luckily, I persisted. And through my persistence in my desire for more, I overcame my own foolishness. Yeah. I'm still a fool,
We
but
all,
at least in the
we
severity,
all,
in the
yes,
severeness, like Carlos. Right?
yes. Okay.
So be
He
aware
suggests,
that when I'm calling Carlos an accolade, I'm really just scolding myself. Right?
I was just feeling that all the scolding and everything is coming to me because I have been there. When I was reading Siddhartha, I was feeling like same, so irritated, bothered
Exactly.
by the patience,
Exactly.
immense patience he had that. So
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
maybe. So it's a mutual thing. Anyway, he
Yeah.
suggested repeatedly that I should at least test the devil's weed with one more sorcery with the lizards. I played with the idea for a long time, but once urgency increased dramatically until I felt obliged to heed his remark. And one day I made up my mind to divine about some stolen
So
object.
again, to add the moreness here from
Yes.
Don Juan's impeccability. If Carlos just goes by Don Juan's dislike of the Datura, devil's weed, yeah, and doesn't
Mhm.
partake in it, later in his life, and he looks back and he looks at his decision, he might say, yeah, but really, I didn't have any good reason for doing it. I just went by Don Juan's preference. That's not a good reason. And he may regret his decision. Don Juan is aware that he has undue influence on Carlos. And therefore, he has to make an undue effort to make sure that Carlos actually participates enough to be able to make a choice on his own. So that he won't later look back and regret the fact that, well, I was influenced. All right, Don Juan isn't trying to influence me. It was my own fault. But nonetheless, right, Don Juan is being absolutely scrupulous to make sure that that Carlos gets full free choice. Yes, very important. Make sense, Beena?
Yes. Yes. Are you there?
Yeah. I'm waiting for you to continue reading. Sorry, I just pause and then
Okay.
you just fill in the pause. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Monday, 28th December 1964. On Saturday,
Oh, did you
19th.
read that? And one day I made up my mind to divine about some
Yes.
stolen objects. Oh, you
Yes.
did read that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Monday, 28th December 1964. On Saturday, 19th December, I cut the Datura route. I waited until it was fairly dark to do my dancing around the plant. I prepared the root extract during the night, and on Sunday, about 6 a.m., I went to the site of my Datura. I sat in front of the plant. I had taken careful notes on Don Juan's teachings about the procedure. I read my notes again and realized I did not have to grind the seeds there. Somehow, just being in front of the plant gave me a rare kind of emotional stability, a clarity of thought, or a power of concentrate on my actions which I ordinarily lacked. I followed all the instructions meticulously, calculating my time so that the paste and the root were ready by late afternoon. About 5 o'clock, I was busy trying to catch a pair of lizards for an hour and a half. I tried every method I could think of, but I failed in every attempt. I was sitting in front of the Datura plant trying to figure out an expedient way of accomplishing my purpose when I suddenly remembered that Don Juan had said the lizards had to be talked to. At first, I felt ludicrous talking to the lizards. It was like being embarrassed by talking in front of an audience. The feeling soon vanished and I went on talking. It was almost dark. I lifted a rock. A lizard was under it. It had the appearance of being numb. I picked it up and then I saw that there was another stiff lizard under another rock. They did not even wriggle. The sewing of the
So
mouth.
see how we're starting to understand this alternate reality. Yes. And it's
Yes.
very important to be aware that the reality that we are aware of is not the only reality, and it's not a fixed reality either. Right? In other words, to quote myself, yeah, and it's a very, very cool quote, this one, and I will claim it and say, wow, it's cool, because it is. And that is, the world does not work the way we think it does. It is a massively important awareness and understanding. Doesn't mean you have to get into stuff like this. It just means in simple things, the way people react, the way they believe, the way they are motivated, etc. So much of what we take for granted, nope, it's not so. And when you come to this understanding and you start to look a little deeper, you realize, oh my goodness, I have such a limited bubble view of the world, and just in ordinary things, nothing to do with anything unusual or exceptional like this. Simple, ordinary, day-to-day living. The world does not work the way we think it does. Very magical. Just attunement. Just attunement.
Yes.
It's so cool. So cool. Okay.
Okay. The sewing of the mouth and eyes was the most difficult task. I noticed that Don Juan had imparted a sense of irrevocability to my acts. His stance was that when a man begins an act, there is no way to stop. If I had wanted to stop, however, there was nothing to prevent me. Perhaps I did not want to stop. I
I
set
think
one
that
list.
can go into our code file, Beena.
Yes.
Okay. So this code file, what we are doing, you won't see it now because the screen share, it
Yes.
only shows this window, right? But
Yeah.
I have a file, a spreadsheet, where I put in the quote, and then in another column I say from book one, and then later we are going to tag these and we're going to sort them into the different categories, right? Because there are many different
Yes.
categories, right? Like, this is very powerful later on, because Don Juan will talk about the same topic in multiple books all across the series. When you are able to see those together, it gives a really wonderful depth perception. And it's a fantastic, fantastic way of extracting moreness. Now, I've done this many years ago, when I was a young man, and I got lots of value out of it, right? And it's something that's very important. And it's something that in my own work, I would recommend somebody does as well. Because likewise, the things come in different places. You put it all together, oh gosh, you start to see a different picture, right? Very, very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. All right, please continue while I add it to the file, Beena. And
I set one
okay,
lizard free and it went in a northeasterly direction. The omen of a good but difficult experience. I tied the other lizard to my shoulder and smeared my temples as prescribed. The lizard was stiff. For a moment, I thought it had died, and Don Juan had never told me what to do if that happened. But the lizard was only numb. I drank the potion and waited a while. I felt nothing out of the ordinary. I began rubbing the paste on my temples. I applied it 25 times, then quite mechanically, as if I were absent-minded, I spread it repeatedly all over my forehead. I realized my mistake and hurriedly wiped the paste off. My forehead was sweaty.
yeah.
I became feverish. Intense anxiety gripped me, for Don Juan had strongly advised me not to rub the paste on my forehead. The fear changed into a feeling of absolute loneliness, a feeling of being doomed. I was there by myself. If something harmful was going to happen to me, there was no one there to help me. I wanted to run away. I had an alarming sensation of indecision, of not knowing what to do. A flood of thoughts rushed into my mind, flashing with extraordinary speed. I noticed that they were rather strange thoughts. That is, they were strange in the sense that they seemed to come in a different way from ordinary thoughts. I'm familiar with the way I think. My thoughts have a definite order that is my own, and my deviation is noticeable, and any deviation is noticeable. One of the alien thoughts was about a statement made by an author. It was, I vaguely remember, more like a voice or something said somewhere in the background. It happened so fast that it startled me. I paused to consider it, but it changed into an ordinary thought. I was certain I had read the statement, but I could not think of the author's name. I suddenly remembered that it was Alfred Kroeber. Then another alien thought popped up and said that it was not Kroeber, but George Simmel, who had made the statement. I insisted that it was Kroeber. And the next thing I knew, I was in the midst of an argument with myself and had forgotten about my feeling of being doomed. My eyelids were heavy, as thought I had taken sleeping pills. Although I had never taken any, it was the image that came to my mind. I was falling asleep. I wanted to go to my car and crawl in, but I couldn't move. Then, quite suddenly, I woke up, or rather clearly felt that I had. My first thought was about the time of the day. I looked around. I was not in front of the Datura plant. Nonchalantly, I accepted the fact that I was undergoing
nonchalantly.
Nonchalantly, I accepted. Sorry, I don't know the meaning of this word.
Nonchalant is very casual, and I don't care about anything. You know, nonchalant, like, oh, whatever, yeah, all right, yeah. Nonchalant.
Nonchalantly,
I mean, the word itself sounds like that, nonchalantly, right? You see?
Nonchalantly, I accepted the fact that I was undergoing another divinatory experience. It was 12:35, a clock above my head. I knew it was October. I saw a young man carrying a stack of papers. I was nearly touching him. I saw the veins of his neck pulsating and heard the fast beating of his heart. I had become absorbed in what I was seeing and had not been aware so far of the quality of my thoughts. Then I heard a voice in my ear describing the scene, and I realized that the voice was the alien thought in my mind. Just to give you that it feels like a deja vu to me. This young man coming, carrying a stack of paper. I don't know. I had a feeling, very strange feeling, that I have seen this, or I have experienced this, or I have read this. Anyway.
Wow. I mean, we haven't read this before. We haven't said.
No.
I mean, I've talked about the Carlos and Don Juan, but I never shared this story because you have to read it in context, and it's not something that has any value. So I've never mentioned this. That's most fascinating, Beena. Now, which part triggered the deja vu?
Yes, there's the young man approaching, the young man carrying a stack of papers and coming so close. Like, okay, I could feel that, okay, his heart was beating really fast and pulsating, neck pulsating. And
wow. And you said feel, Carlos said heard. Interesting.
Yes. Oh, yes.
See, that's part of capital H hearing.
Yes.
Is to hear such detail, right? It may be insignificant. Beena may be paraphrasing, but to hear somebody's heart, you're so close you can hear it. That you practically have to be inside them, and to feel someone's heart, that's slightly different. Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe the same, but slightly different. Nuance. We want to be able to notice such differences. Yeah.
Yes.
Very powerful. You pick up a lot in the world. You get to really see much that otherwise you would not see, not know, not perceive. Yeah. Keep going. This is fantastic that this is a deja vu for you. Sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
No, it's okay. I became so engrossed in listening that the scene lost its visual interest for me. I heard the voice at my right ear above my shoulder. It actually created the scene by describing it. But it obeyed my will because I could stop it at any time and examine the details of what it said at my leisure. I heard, saw the entire sequence, the young man's action. The voice went on explaining them in minute details, but somehow the action was not important. The little voice was the extraordinary issue. 3 times during the course of the experience, I tried to turn around to see who was talking. I tried to turn my head all the way to the right or just whirl around unexpectedly to see if somebody was there. But every time I did it, my vision became blurry. I thought The reason I cannot turn around is because the scene is not in the realm of ordinary reality. And that thought was my own. From then on, I concentrated my attention on the voice alone. It seemed to come from my shoulder. It was perfectly clear. Although it was a small voice, it was, however, not a child's voice or a falsetto's voice, but a miniature man's voice. It wasn't my voice either. I presumed it was English that I heard. Whenever I tried deliberately to trap the voice, it subsided altogether or became vague and the scene faded. I thought of a smile. Sorry. The voice was like the image created by dust particles in the eyelashes or the blood vessels in the cornea of the eye, a worm-like shape that can be seen as long as one is not looking at it directly. But the moment one tries to look at it, it shifts out of sight with the movement.
1 second, Beena.
Yes.
Simile. Sorry, I was AFK there for a second, and
Okay.
you said the word, but it's pronounced simile.
Yes, I was like simile.
Simile.
Yes.
Yeah,
simile.
yeah, simile. Yeah, you know, words like that, they sort of like, come on, people. Simile should have an accent on the last E. Some words have that accent, like you'll see it in naivete as that accent, right? Now, likewise, this should have an accent, because otherwise you should read it as simile. That's how you should read it, but it's simile, but like hyperbole, it also should have an accent on the E. And to me, it's a bit frustrating that it doesn't have that there, or annoying maybe. I don't know, irritating, I don't know. Anyway,
but
just so you know.
I don't know why Carlos never think that the lizard on his shoulder might be talking.
Because Carlos is reluctant to accept magic into his world. He's so afraid of being foolish and being caught up and losing his mind and going crazy and all this, that he doesn't make this obvious connection. It's like duh, but he's reluctant to accept it. As you're going to see, it's happened before, and this is now not the first time. That's why I've been. He has this great reluctance to accept magic. Yeah, he doesn't want his world to collapse.
I became totally disinterested in the action. As I listened, the voice became more complex. What I thought to be a voice was more like something whispering thoughts into my ear. But that was not accurate. Something was thinking for me. The thoughts were outside myself. I knew that was so, because I could hold my own thoughts and the thoughts of the other at the same time. At one point, the voice created scenes acted out by the young man, which had nothing to do with my original question about the lost objects. The young man performed very complex acts. Action had become important again, and I paid no more attention to the voice. I began to lose patience. I wanted to stop. How can I end this? I thought. The voice in my ear said I should go back to Kenya. I asked how, and the voice answered that I should think of my plant. I thought of my plant. Usually I sat in front of it. I had done it so many times that it was quite easy for me to visualize it. I believed that seeing it, as I did at that moment, was another hallucination. But the voice said I was back. I strained to listen. There was only silence. The Datura plant in front of me seemed as real as everything else I had seen, but I could touch it. I could move around. I stood up and walked towards my car. The effort exhausted me, and I sat down and closed my eyes. I felt dizzy and wanted to vomit. There was a buzzing in my ears. Something slid on my chest. It was the lizard. I remember Don Juan's admonition about setting it free. I went back to the plant and untied the lizard. I did not want to see whether it was dead or alive. I broke the clay pot with the paste and kicked some dirt over it. I got into my car and fell asleep. Wow.
Wow.
This is interesting. And also it is right on time because we have to wrap it up now.
Yeah. Today we have a lot of stuff to do, so we have to be a bit short. I mean, I'm keen to hear the follow on, with Carlos describes experience to Don Juan, but we'll have to leave that for tomorrow. So we'll have a cliffhanger a
Yes.
little bit here. Have a
Yes.
cliffhanger.
Yes.
I I
Yes.
I I I want to make a point because I'm remembering it now.
Yes.
About well, it was more came up with when we were doing with Mescalito, but also with this. Right now, when Carlos describes Mescalito and Don Juan tells him, Mescalito teaches the right way to live. It's very different to the Datura plant, which has more specific usages. But I thought, yes, this being taught by an entity like Mescalito, being taught in that way, which is direct teaching, right? I mean, you learn it or you struggle or you suffer. This is most wonderful, but there is a massive price to be paid for that. And the price to me is dependency, lack of freedom.
Mm.
I am engaging in something which is teaching me I'm not doing it by myself. And that to me is a sacrifice of your independence, of being your freedom.
Yes.
Because when I read that, I think, man, I'm tempted because I live in Arizona. I could make an effort to go and find people and do and go and do this, right? I can do that, and it's tempting because, man, I would love to have that question that really is important to you, to ask it of something like Mescalito, where you are actually going to get an answer. But the point is, I'm getting an answer from something that's not me. Personally, I prefer to figure out that answer myself and have the ability to do so. That, to
Yes.
me, is of a much greater value. Like I said,
Yeah.
the dependency that could easily come and the lack of ability that you forego by pursuing this course of action, that to me is a very, very steep price to pay. Yes, very steep
Yes.
price to pay. And it's a very important point that I wanted to mention. Second point that's been on my mind is that we have to be very, very careful of setting impossible standards. Take impeccability. Whenever I've mentioned impeccability, every now and then say, oh, who can be impeccable? This is impossible. It's like having patience when I was a kid. The community that I was in and the greater community absolutely believed that to have actual real patience was impossible, was silly, was foolish to even think that you could have it. Yes, you're supposed to have it, but nobody can have patience. They really believe this, which of course is complete nonsense. Now, impeccability is a high standard, but we must be aware that it is attainable. And also, we must be aware that as we start to live and practice these qualities, patience, impeccability, integrity, whatever it is, self-honesty, that we mustn't keep on pushing the bar higher. In other words, if we keep doing this, because when we start, we have this high bar and we learn and we learn. And then we normalize the behavior, we normalize the patience, we normalize the impeccability. And it's not exceptional anymore, right? But in our mind, impeccability and patience is an exceptional quality because that's how we started and it has that association with it. So as we normalize it, now our actions are just normal. But the quality that we are pursuing, right, the way of being, this concept, it's still exceptional to us by association, and therefore it gets pushed higher up and into being something that we're still seeking, we're still looking to attain, right? And it has, and it becomes ever more difficult and ever more impossible until it becomes an impossible standard, right? As we acquire the qualities, we keep pushing the standard higher, and we must be very careful of pushing that standard into impossible. Yes, we want the fullness. We want full capital P patience. We want full capital I impeccability. But we have to be very careful because otherwise, when you start having the patience, when you start having the impeccability, you feel like you don't. If the standard has become an impossible standard, and then you'll also never get there. And then you end up with all sorts of other problems, lack of motivation, potentially depression, whatever, because you've created this impossible standard. It is not an impossible standard. It's a perfectly attainable standard, yes? But if you don't feel like you've attained it, then you might as well not have attained it. Beena?
Yes. Yes.
Very important. Very important. We'll talk more about
It
this,
is.
about
Yes.
impossible standards, and also
Yes.
about freedom and the price that we are willing to pay for it. Yes, or not willing to pay. Yes, I personally rather have the full tools at my disposal, and I will delay getting to the answer. That's fine by me. That's fine by me. Yes, because yes, I may get the answer I want, but at what cost? Not happening for me. Yes. Yeah. Very important point. Very important point. Yeah.
Yes. Impeccability right there in like really in practice. That okay, why it is
Exactly.
important. Thinking it through to the
Exactly.
end because the idea is so profound that okay, oh
Exactly.
yes, I can get like okay, yes, and I can use power and I can resolve things. It is going to resolve things for me, and it should.
Yeah.
But see, thinking it through to the end, and we see
Right.
that how the
Right.
Moreness comes in. Of course, this is
Right.
his personal preference, which is not
Exactly.
negating the value of those things.
Exactly.
But it
Exactly.
is a
This is
personal choice, and this is
exactly.
what
Beena, I'm
the
glad you emphasized that because I said for me. Yes.
yes,
Maybe I didn't
yes,
emphasize it enough, but for me. For others
yes,
to say, wow, Mescalito, I don't have the interest, I don't have the motivation, I don't have the desire to figure all this stuff out by myself. If I don't get the answers for my life questions via something like Mescalito or as equivalent, I'm assuming there's equivalences in other parts of the world because Mescalito is very specific, area specific, right? Peyote only grows in very certain parts of the Sonora Desert. So it's not accessible to everybody. But I'm assuming in other parts of the world there are other things that are similar, right?
yes,
But
yes,
so a person might say, if I don't get these answers, I'll never get in because I know I'm not going to get there on my own. I don't have that drive. I don't have that desire. Like Syl and Beena, they motivated to figure it out themselves. Good for them. That's not my path. The universe takes care of all paths,
yes,
all of them.
yes,
They're all equally valid. It makes no difference. You have to follow your path, not a
yes,
path that somebody else has followed that they found valuable. It's got to be yours. Yeah. Very, very
absolutely.
important. And way of impeccability is not a path that says you must go this way. No, it's saying, here are the tools that enable you to choose your own path
Yes.
and
Now
follow it.
create your own
Right.
path
Right.
and
So
create your
yes,
own
you're going to go on the path, but anybody who's going to go on the path, say, well, you need to prepare. Make sure you have, well, a water bottle for one thing. Yes.
path.
You have
Okay.
good shoes
Thank you
or you
so
have good whatever. So be prepared
yes.
in other
Okay.
words.
Yeah, yes,
All right, we
yes.
gotta
Sorry,
go. We gotta
sorry, I'm
go.
interrupting you because we gotta go. Thank you so
Yes.
much for joining us live, and please, if you are watching us recorded here on YouTube and Facebook in the SASI group, please do leave a comment because by doing so, you are going to train your online algorithm that okay to bring more value, same value or more value into your life because this is very crucial and important for us, for all of us, because online algorithm is ultimately the life algorithm for us and it is going to affect big time. So whenever
Exactly.
you see that,
Exactly.
please acknowledge that you are having a value and tell and train your algorithm that
Yeah.
this tiny channel is doing something valuable which I like to have in my life. And
Oh yeah.
please
Oh yeah.
do click like and subscribe to the channel, and also that
Yes.
please leave a question because questions
Yes.
are love notes from the universe for us, and we
Oh yeah.
love to receive love
Oh yeah.
notes from the universe. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Syl. Thank
Yeah.
you everyone for joining
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Real quick shout out to Elise. Elise Sugar joined us. So hello, Elise. I'm always
Oh,
glad when you come and join us. So
yes.
very cool.
Okay.
And by the
See you guys
way,
tomorrow.
for the IGers, just by the way, if you want to watch the entire video, I can't share the entire video. It's too long for IG. You can find it on my YouTube channel, right? No,
Yes,
it's not hard to find.
maybe we can start sharing links to the YouTube channel on IG
Well,
as a
it
comment.
does in the clips. They the person who posts the clips for me, they put there. You can find it on, and they give the YouTube
Perfect.
my full YouTube name,
Perfect.
so you can go. Yeah,
So thank you, support. Yes, this is
yeah,
valuable. Okay.
yeah, yeah. All
Okay.
right, bye
Bye for
bye
now.
everybody. Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye. And meeting.